almost all of us have some degree of fear of getting the coronavirus, right? I mean, if we're honest, that's going on right now. And that's different than some of the other fears that we carry, like fear of rejection or, something like that, which in many ways I think is a little bit easier to work with and in other ways harder. But we all have some fear that then is driving our behavior, right? And it's driving our emotion. It's one thing to be aware, right? And be taking appropriate action. And there's another aspect to that that is just being afraid and kind of being paralyzed by that fear so that you're really not effective or that you can't live your life. He talks about how fear is a protective or an adaptive mechanism. So when he was talking about fear, he was talking about how fear sort of evolved in us and the two mistakes that we make. One being worried about a threat that isn't there. Okay, that's one mistake. And the other one is not being aware of a threat that's there. Okay, and the illustration, the threat was a tiger. And so he says, what are the outcomes of making those two types of mistakes? So the outcome of making the first mistake is that you are experiencing unnecessary anxiety because you're afraid of something that doesn't exist. Okay, and that may never happen. The second mistake is not being aware or taking appropriate measures to prevent yourself from succumbing to a threat that is actually there. And what's the end result of that? Being dead. Okay, so evolutionarily, he says, we have evolved to adopt a tendency to have anxiety about things that might happen because the potential result of being wrong is less deadly than the other alternative, right? And it's interesting to think about that idea in the concept of this global pandemic, really, right? And then to ask the questions that he poses regarding, evaluating the true level of threat that it is to you, and then identifying your resources, okay? Because he says fear is an experience that has to do with us thinking that there is a threat that is stronger than our capacity to deal with it, right? That's stronger than our resources, okay? There's a threat that we don't have enough resources to neutralize, all right? And then what we tend to do by human nature is to exaggerate the threat, the perceived threat, exaggerate the strength of that or the importance of it or the global aspect of it, and minimize or discount our resources. So the process that he walks you through in the book is to really evaluate what's the actual threat, okay? Because again, being aware of things that are dangerous is a good thing, right? It's helpful for us. So it's not helpful to just pretend nothing's happening, right? That's not helpful. But it's about creating an accurate perspective. And while we evaluate the threat that we're worried about, okay, and sort of rationalize the reactions that we're having to that threat, right, logically, then we come on the tail end and we identify all the resources that we have to deal with that threat. And this is, you say, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And how do I deal with that? What would happen? And what resources do I have to deal with that? So then identify what are the resources that you have internally? What are the resources that you have externally? Okay. And then what kind of a plan can you make, right, around that perceived threat or the anxiety that you're experiencing around that to create a greater sense of calm, amidst a world that is constantly presenting us with threatening things, whether it's a pandemic or a screaming client or, an angry husband or, the world is just like that. So then the question is, can we develop a skill set so that we can navigate this treacherous terrain with peace, internal peace, because there's only so much we can control. So that's about the fear part of it. But I would encourage you to go through that, especially if you're finding that's coming up for you a lot, and work with that and see where it gets you. And then he has a lot of nice things to say about anger and how to work with that too. So focus on the things that are immediately relevant to you. It might be something that's right in your face, or it might be something that that you've carried for a long time, right? That you would like to heal or kind of work out a little bit and use the opportunity that we're having now to do that. Okay.